Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Friday's edition of Trending here on Ickonic. It's great to be with you, Rich, as you're here for a reason, aren't you? Because what's going out tonight?
What's going out tonight is the Round Table.
It is our brand new monthly show, which if you're a subscriber to Ickonic, you can get. Head over to ickonic.com, sign up for just $1.99 for your first month. So that's going out at 5 o'clock tonight. We're discussing an incredible number of topics. And then in the second part, we're taking questions from all of our members. So 2 episodes, about 3 hours of content exclusively to members of the channel. And our new series, The Legacy, came out yesterday as well with David looking back at some of his books over the years. And in the production of that series, even he was surprised by some of the things he's written about and the accuracy of them to world events. So head over again to ickonic.com to check those out. Right, Donald Trump is meeting Vladimir Putin, Rich, today in a meeting which I'm not sure I would love to be a fly on the wall for, just because I just want to see it. It's just been amazing to me. So Trump says that Putin won't mess him around, because obviously Trump's, big bad man, and he'll know within 5 minutes whether Putin is genuinely interested and serious about peace. At the time of recording this, obviously this meeting hasn't taken place yet, so we can only sort of conjecture about what may be discussed and what may be the outcome of it. But as we've said countless times on this show, peace is not the desired outcome. The desired outcome is conflict or some kind of situation to continue that conflict. We've said the same in the Middle East. That's why even the talks of ceasefires or the quieting down, it's always short-lived, including what's going on with Iran at the moment, where it seems to have died down. That will come back. Don't worry about that. So if you have the knowledge that the outcome is not peace, you know that something will always get in the way to prevent that from happening. So we've seen European leaders this week basically put a hard red line down of Putin's not serious. He's going to come in and ask for ridiculous things, trying to push Trump to, or in the public domain anyway, push Trump to be strong and not give in to him and not give up any land and all of that, when it's not black and white. It's not black and white. There's large swathes of the Donbass region, which is populated by ethnic Russians who consider themselves to be Russians, and Ukrainians, they're brothers. They don't see a division or anything between the country. That's never discussed. They never discussed the NATO expansion towards the Russian border, which again was an agreement. They talk about the fact that Ukraine gave up its nuclear weapons in exchange for never being invaded, and they say Russia's gone back on that. Okay, you can argue that's true, but you can also say that the NATO lines were drawn and NATO's gone back on that. So again, it's this whole one side good, other side bad, bogeyman, good guy, East versus West kind of dynamic, which is just pathetic, and it's schoolyard playground attitudes when it comes to it, really. But this meeting today does seem quite important. It does seem like this is a catalyst for what may come afterwards, because this has just been going on and on and on now for over nearly 3 years. Well, over 3 years, I should say. So this kind of feels like if they want to ramp up this conflict to the point that there could be a third world war, it's kind of got to start happening now. So if this meeting is a disaster and they both leave with no sort of outcome, and Trump does his usual, throw his toys out and say Putin's this, Putin's that, which he's done a couple of times, you could potentially see a move towards more armed conflict. On the other hand, you could see an end to the agreement or an agreement reached. I don't know. I think it's a difficult one to judge because of, there's lots of factors at play here, and they play, 5D chess in terms of how they're trying to get their agenda across, and they can make it look like you're winning and you're not, and then da-da-da. But when you know ultimately the outcome is conflict, something's going to stop peace from prevailing.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're going to paint up Trump as being this hero.
They already have.
I mean, it's just ridiculous. We all know from the research we've done over the years that these guys are all on the same team, if you want to put it that way, and they're not on our side. When they're playing 5D chess, they're playing amongst themselves and us as the pawns and the bits on the chessboard. That's the point. These guys are part of and I say it all the time, and Gaz rolls his eyes every time I say the word messianic, but it is what it is. I can't change what it is. Well, I can. That's what we're trying to do here. But I can't change the fact that has to be brought up. These guys are part of the same cult, and it actually comes in as part of an agenda for a world to come, they call it. And Ukraine, I think, is known as the breadbasket of the world. I think that's where the New Jerusalem's going to be. This is all messianic stuff. Putin has his own Chabad, Rabbi Lazar. Donald Trump is deeply involved with this Chabad messianic group, which I believe is Sabbatean Frankists and Ashkenazim. This is theatre.
It is. Well, there's videos and pictures dating back as far as the Bush administration with Putin, because Putin's been there forever, isn't he? With them at Freemasonic rituals at Bohemian Grove and at Freemasonic gatherings and so on. So this idea that Putin is this bogeyman who is on the outside of the system, and he's against the New World Order and all of that. Well, I think that's you're very, very naive to think that.
Incredibly so. And this is only what the theatre is about, is giving the public perception they're trying to do something in your favour, so you accept the next move along. And absolutely, has to lead to... I mean, I'm not sure it's going to be a third world war in terms of military.
A hot war, yeah.
Hot war. I think it might be more technological and setting it up that way where, the prisoners coming down on you when you're all looking to fight each other. Actually, everybody's going to get the bowl over them like the mouse in the kitchen.
Well, in terms of chaos caused, or chaos that could be caused, a bomb obviously would commit a certain amount of chaos, but as would cyber attacks. A cyber attack on a major city where all of the technological infrastructure, whether that be hospitals, public transport, all of those things, just to name two, all are reliant on that. That would cause massive chaos, loss of life. It would cause riot. It would be absolutely chaotic. A cyber attack almost could be as devastating as a military attack in some ways, in terms of the knock-on effect, the immediate impact on people's lives. So you're right. I think technologically, there's definitely an opportunity for them to do that rather than a military conflict.
I think that's the way. I don't see a big bomb going off in that sense, because why decimate the infrastructure that you need to build upon?
Yeah, possibly.
Doesn't make sense to me.
Possibly. I mean, there's lots of people that talk about nuclear weapons and talk about the validity of whether they're actually real.
Yeah.
But the people that claim they are also argue, if this, we're going deep this morning, if this archontic non-human entity or non-human force that is behind this, if that struggles to live in this atmosphere, because there's always been the questions of why has the atmosphere of this planet been made less and less hospitable towards humans in terms of the increase in radiation through EMF and so on, things like that. Well, what if it's making an atmosphere that is more palatable to them? And would a nuclear war, which again would increase the radiation in the atmosphere tenfold, if not more, would that make it more, hospitable for them to be able to be out in the open here? Yep. It's an idea. I'm not saying that's what I believe. I'm saying that's an idea, and it's an idea that people have discussed over the years, and I think it's something worth at least an acknowledgement.
I think these are the questions that are really important.
Because on the surface, why would you destroy the world that you live in?
Yeah, we need to be able to question these things, bounce these things around and see the possibilities, because they certainly do. And I think that's what's really important about this, is that literally we get to question everything, theorize everything. We're not saying it's true, but we have to have the discussion. And this appears to be what they're doing. And remember, you're dealing with a cult. Would you go to Charles Manson and say, nah, I'd never do that? You wouldn't, would you?
Probably not.
No.
Our job is not to know everything, it's to question everything.
It's question everything.
Absolutely. Right. So similar concept or similar topic, but we're moving on.
Yeah, so the land Ukraine could be told is a crucial term, to give up. And will Russia have to concede anything? Could Ukraine have to surrender the crucial forest belt of cities that has held back Russian invaders for 11 years? 11 is a Kabbalistic number. Sky News looks at what a land of peace deal could involve ahead of Trump-Putin summit. As it ties in, any agreement between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, remember they're on the same team, so they have an agreement that they're told to stick to. They just need to give you the theatre that they're agreeing out of their own volition. When they meet on Friday, could leave Ukraine in an impossible position after 3 years of brutal, grinding war of survival. There has been speculation the two leaders could agree a so-called land of peace deal, which could see Ukraine instructed to give up territory in exchange for the end of the fighting, which is like letting the bully in your back garden to play around if you don't stop hitting me in the face. It is a bit ridiculous. And also, we have the other part of it. Zelensky's main funder, Kolomoisky, was a main funder of this Chabad cult as well. So remember that there's a lot more going on underneath these things. So that, to me, is another bit of theatre. I'm saying it probably will happen, but not for the reasons that we're given.
No, absolutely not. I mean, Ukraine is a very interesting country. Most people can't point it out on a map, but it's got a very, very strategic strategic importance, geopolitical importance in terms of where it is in the world, where it borders Russia, obviously. We've seen this expansion of NATO more and more towards the Russian border to take in the former Soviet states and Baltic states and Scandinavian states over the last few years, all of which was agreed wouldn't happen, but it has. And also it's got a very interesting history in terms of the connection between Israel and the people of Israel and where they originate from, because there's very, very little, if any, evidence they actually originate from the ancient Israelites or the claimed ancient Israelites, and that's why DNA and ancestral testing is actually banned in Israel, because I think it would prove that there's no right to or no connection to that land whatsoever. It's Eastern Europe and Ukraine being a massive part. And you've also got then the minerals in Ukraine. You've got it's an incredibly prosperous and fertile land.
Fertile land is an important term.
Exactly, it is. And you've got it's one of the biggest, if not, I think it is the biggest grain exporter. You've got a lot of the metals in there, cobalts and things like that are going to be used for this electronic infrastructure, whether that be electronic cars, whether that be digital chips, whatever it might be. So it's an incredibly important country. And I think because in the West, we get obsessed with the geopolitical situation of Western countries, Britain, America, France, Germany, and those nations, you don't look at a country like Ukraine and see it's actually an enormous landmass for one. It's absolutely enormous. When compared to the UK, it's embarrassing, really, in terms of the difference in size compared to the difference in global influence. So there's something incredibly important about Ukraine, and there always has been. There absolutely always has been. So we'll see what happens and see what comes out of this meeting. What tends to come out of these meetings is rhetoric. And then following on, usually nothing that's come out of the rhetoric actually then happens. And I think what's also very important is over the last few days, European leaders, including Zelensky, have come out and said that basically whatever's agreed there, because I'm not there, it doesn't matter.
Right.
That's what he said. He said, any agreements. And I kind of get that point. It's like me chatting to the estate agent about selling your house and not telling you.
I completely
It don't really
get
make any sense.
Yeah.
But then the difference people would argue, I suppose, is America, Europe, NATO have been funding this war on the Ukrainian side, so therefore they should have an influence on what happens next. Otherwise, you're just committing to continuing to fund it. Do you remember Starmer? For as long as it takes, however many billions a year, while people in the UK are going hungry or old elderly people are going to be terrified about what's coming up this winter in terms of changes to taxes or heating bills and so on. It's disgusting, all of it across the board. But the final point on this to mention is that, as with any conflict, the real victims are the civilians, and there is, there's going to be kids, there's going to be families in Ukraine and in Russia who are negatively impacted by this, whether that be through their houses losing their livelihoods, or whether that be through actually being killed by this conflict. They're just, as with all conflicts, they're pawns. They're pawns in the game of these sick individuals that don't represent any of us. As you've pointed out many a time, they're playing this agenda out, and the people that suffer day in, day out, other civilians, everyday people. Right, we're going to move on, as I mentioned, tax. We've covered this a few times in the last few weeks. I mentioned a few weeks ago that in the lead up to a budget or an autumn statement, in this case in October, they always start to leak bits of information about what may come. My opinion is to get public reaction, to see what they think they can get away with. If they get such a strong pushback on a certain thing, they may reconsider it. So by slowly leaking stuff out, they can gauge public opinion. So when they actually say the statement, they can pretty much predict how people are going to react because they've already leaked certain parts of it. That's why we'll continue to highlight this when relevant in the lead up to October, which is just a couple of months away. So Britain's economic outlook has darkened. Brilliant. I'm sure that will come as a shock to all of you watching in England, and probably other countries around the world are in the same position. The first quarter GDP has gone down. See, this is where they lose you. They use stupid terms like GDP has gone down. They know most people don't sit there and understand what on earth that means, what the hell that means. And they lose you through using long evangelical words. See what I did there? And they try and bamboozle you with language that you're not going to understand. So you just sit back and go, okay, I'll let someone a lot smarter than me deal with this. When it's actually quite simple. They just use basic overcomplication of words to try and explain their concept. GDP is basically how much money per individual a country has. Pretty much that. So the more that is, the better, in theory. But then it doesn't take into consideration the costs. If I have £100, my costs are 50. If you give me £150, but then all of a sudden my costs are 100, I'm not any better off. I'm in the same position. Yep. Might be earning more, might look better on paper, but I'm still at the same position come the end of the day. And that's pretty much what we're seeing here, except those costs are going up and the income is not going up.
They're squeezing the personal allowance of your Indian caste system and how much you can actually
100%. And then even when you earn it, they want to tax it that way too.
Even when you're dead.
Well, yeah. I'm not obviously, a fan of Margaret Thatcher, but there was a brilliant Margaret Thatcher speech when she spoke about socialism and spoke about, you want to keep more of the money you earn. Well, that's very selfish. We can't have that. You might want to have shares in your firm you work for. We can't have that. You might want to choose where you send your kids to school. That's very divisive. And it's true. It's a very, very applicable point, but that's not saying support of Margaret Thatcher, because the Conservatives have done exactly the same thing. But it's just that point was very interesting. Yeah. So this story highlights the potential taxes that they're going to have a go at. So inheritance tax, which is already one of the most disgusting, grave-robbing taxes going, because it's money that has had tax paid on it already. What inheritance tax is, it's nothing to do with raising money. It's to do with stopping intergenerational wealth. Yes. Because hypothetically, let's say you inherit a load of money, you can make different life choices based on that than you could if you start with zero.
Yeah, you start the race further up the field than you did right at the finishing line. And your whole point is to try and get your family further up the field to get a head start.
And also, you might have a dream. Let's say, for example, I'm 16, I'm in a band at school. Well, if I know I've got a bit of money put aside, I can give that a few years to see if I'm going to get somewhere. I'm going to give it a go. Yeah. Whereas if you're 16 and you're starting from nothing, you need to get a job, go and live in the real world, mate. And you may abandon your dreams, and you may abandon things that you would potentially put your time into. So that's part of it as well. It keeps people in the rat race, as you said. It gets them on that from day dot. Mm-hmm. So it's an end of intergenerational wealth. Inheritance tax is just a stepping stone. It's not meant to end there. It's meant to probably end in a position where there's no such thing as inheritance whatsoever. So last year, the inheritance tax threshold is at 325 grand. So you can inherit that without paying any tax. Now, that sounds a lot of money, and it is a lot of money. However, that does include assets. And if you look at the average house price in this country now, it's about 300 grand. So if you're having a house be passed on, that will take that whole allowance. If you're having a house passed on in cities like London, you're having to sell that house to pay the inheritance tax bill. This house could have been in your family for generations. Your parents could have paid a pittance for it. Your grandparents could have paid a pittance for it relatively.
So they've capped how much you can get for that house. So you could go, well, I can't get any more than 325,000 because I'll have to pay tax on it. So just give me 325,000 for my 500,000 pound house.
It's absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. They obviously have had a tax on farmers as well, because farming used to be outside of that, because a farm, this is the difference between money and assets. Money is physical money in the bank that you can pick up and you can touch. An asset is a intangible money. It's money that you can't just go, I want that. It's a car, it's a house, it's land. Yeah. So for example, a farm may have a value to it because of the land, but it's not worth anything unless you're doing something with that land. So unless you're producing crops, unless you're producing animals, unless you're doing milk and eggs and things like that, that's not generating any money. And it also, and this is where people are so thick, and it does my head in.
Generating is the great word to put it, actually.
Generating, making it out of something. Yeah. And that's something the governments don't do. Have you noticed? They don't actually make anything. They just vampire and parasite off of people that do. So if you look at a farm doesn't have any value until somebody, as you say there, generates and makes something. Mm-hmm. So you might have an asset, a farm of X amount of acres that on paper, and it is on paper, it's not real, it's worth £5 million. All of a sudden you're getting taxed based on a value of £5 million. Whereas you might actually only earn 30. Yeah. You might earn 30 grand a year because as we know, farming has been attacked. So the argument of these people of we can't, these rich farmers, most farmers really aren't rich. No. They're really not. They're really struggling. They're barely making ends meet. And in fact, they're the people that should be being subsidised and supported and helped by the likes of government and our taxpayer money, also, not wind turbines and flipping solar farms.
Would you want to get up at 4 a.m. and feed the pigs? I don't fancy that. It's not an easy job.
Exactly. It's absolutely mental, really. The fact that people can't grasp that. I'll tell you what, if farmers went on strike and politicians went on strike, I'll tell you who you'd notice first. Income tax and fiscal drag. Now, they've pledged not to raise income tax, but as we know, Labour do what they want, or everyone does what they want. So income tax is probably another one. Capital gains tax, which is a really, really, again, abhorrent tax. You buy something, you're very clever, let's say. You think ahead. You buy something, and in future, the value of that goes up. Well, we want to tax you on that. Another one, a big one here, is dividend tax. Now, we've said for a long time they don't want people working for themselves. They don't want people having incomes independent of the state. Now, people that are running small businesses, medium-sized businesses, the dividend rules were incredibly... they were generous at one time in the sense of you could earn actually 30 grand a year without paying a penny of tax about 5 or 6 years ago. Now all of a sudden you can earn I think 13. So they've more than halved it before you pay any tax, and they've upped the thresholds and upped the percentages as well there. Which what that's done is that's taken people that were doing okay and basically changed their income in a second. Because if you go from earning 30 grand and paying no tax to earning 30 grand and paying 3 grand a year, that's 3 grand a year. That's a huge difference, but you're still earning the same, and your business might not be afford to make up that shortfall. And this is where, if you're in a capitalist society, which we supposedly are, we're not really, we're in a cartelist society, but if someone's running a business, that business is obviously then employing other people, which are then paying tax and national insurance into the system. So you look at it from that perspective. So if you have a business owner that maybe earns, a decent, let's say a 6-figure salary, but they employ 100 people that are all paying tax, national insurance, VAT, car tax, house tax, all those other taxes, which we haven't even touched on, into the system, then that's of benefit to the system. If that business owner all of a sudden, it's unviable for them to keep going because of these increasing taxes, and they all of a sudden employing 50 people, they've got 50 people unemployed, claiming off the system or looking for other jobs.
Well, what better way to do it than replace those people with?
Replace those people with AI. That's another massive factor as well. So all of this is essentially, we discussed this yesterday, didn't we, at the round table. All of this system really is designed to do these days is replace you. It's replace you in its various different forms.
Well, they call you the consumer for a reason.
Yeah, 100%.
Because they feel you're consuming their wealth when it's yours. They want to consume you. This system consumes us.
Yeah.
And it squeezes and squeezes to the point where it's actually unsustainable.
It is unsustainable, but that's the idea.
Yeah.
Well, that's the difference, the dynamic that people don't, that the politicians and the everyday person doesn't remember. It's kind of like the dynamic we have with you guys. We work for you. You subscribe to Ickonic. Without you, we don't exist. We can't do what we're doing. And we are very appreciative and respectful of that. And we'll deliver what we can to make, to give you what you have paid for and what you have asked for. Politicians don't get that dynamic. They don't work for themselves. They don't work for the banks and their cartel friends. They work for us. They work for us.
And that 40 billion hole isn't ours.
Well, it's 22. She's made it 40.
Oh, is she? How did she do that? She got a shovel?
Because, mate, I wouldn't trust her to do my tax return, let alone run. Of course she's not running the country. She's just an idiot who is very malleable and will do whatever she is told because she loves the limelight.
She does. She does. If you had Little Britain make a character, that would be exactly what you would expect them to do, wouldn't you?
Yeah, pathetic.
So Israel, we'll move on to the last story now. So Israeli ministers announced plans for new West Bank settlement to bury idea of Palestinian state. And remember, the UK have pledged to recognise a Palestinian state. And my kind of understanding of that, well, yes, you can. Then there's two different things. Palestinian state to us means where they are right now.
Yep.
That's where they should be because that's their home. It's not in a magical storybook. That's where they actually live. The Palestinian state that we're recognising, I believe, will be elsewhere. And they go, look, there's one we made earlier. Yep. And I've said to you, I think this Neom city in Saudi Arabia will be offered up to them. It's just right on the border of where they want to go to. What's the chances they've made a mega city, smart city there? And what better to put people in and experiment on them a bit than the Palestinians? It's either death or you come in Logan's Run and we'll experiment on you a bit. That's just a theory, by the way. But again, these are the questions that we should be asking and we are, entitled to ask.
Yep, absolutely.
There's no such thing as a silly question. Palestinians and rights groups said the settlement would effectively cut the West Bank into separate parts and rob them of any chance to build a Palestinian state. That's the point.
That's the idea. Yeah.
That's the whole point. Israel's far-right finance minister has announced plans to build a new settlement in the Israeli-occupied West Bank. Occupied. It's illegal, which he said would bury the idea of a Palestinian state. They're openly...
Yeah, they don't care anymore.
Criminals.
They don't care anymore because public perception of Israel is so in the floor.
Yeah.
That they might as well just say what they think. Where previously they have at least paid lip service to the fact that no, we just want peace, guys. We just want peace and love. Most moral army in the world. At least now they are going, that's what we're doing. Because it's putting it on public display. You don't have to now go to somebody and convince them that Israel is a terrorist regime. You can just show them stories that are in the mainstream press now because they are openly talking about it, which I don't think is an accident. I think I don't know, there's some kind of double potential outcomes that they're trying to achieve or reason for they're doing it, because they don't do anything by accident. Things aren't, unscripted. They're very carefully planned. So if they're all of a sudden announcing all this and accepting the public fury as a result, there's a reason they're doing that. Because ultimately Israel is meant to be destroyed as well. That's part of it.
Well, part of it, the main part of it, I was trying to find it there, but I can't find the actual verse and chapter, is that in their biblical mystery, madness story, the nations will rise up against Israel at the very end. They have to have this part of their narrative. So they're going for it now and they've sold it to their own people. And I'm not talking about the Israeli people, I'm talking about this Zionist, Ashkenazi, Sabbatean government that pretend to be Israeli and use Zionism as a political tool to get this job done. They know that they've sold this to their people as they will rise up against you. They want you dead. So that the whole point is that they can go, look, we told you, the biblical texts are true. Look, it says there the nations will rise up against, I think it's called her, which is Israel. So it's all written in the plan, mate.
Yeah, it is. It is. And we're seeing it practice and we're seeing it carry out. Anyone that thinks they were ever going to let a Palestinian state happen is incredibly naive. Hence why the delays over the years for any kind of international recognition for there ever being one has come at a point now where it is too late. It is too late. There is no land. The land is split in half already. This just confirms it. And the fact that these people are now openly talking about it is just, it confirms what people have been writing and speaking about for years. They're not interested in peace. The Greater Israel Project is their ultimate aim, and they're not finished yet. The West Bank is just a drop in the ocean of what they actually want to take. And if people don't stand up, then they will. Simple as that. With British and American and French and German weapons, I'll add. So we're not exempt from this. So people that say, oh, why does it matter? Why does it matter what's going on in the Middle East? Well, it started with Britain. The Balfour Declaration in 1948, it started there. And it's still going now as they're getting aeroplane parts and weapons and stuff from us. So we're not exempt from it. Our taxes are going towards this conflict. Well, that's why it's important for us to highlight it. Right, I think that's us, mate.
Yep.
I like being with you in person. It's very nice, mate. It's very nice that your seat's a lot higher than mine as well.
Thank you for that. I thought we got away with that. It was like magic, but you've just given away the card trick.
I think it would be more weird if we didn't acknowledge it, because people would ask how you've grown at least a foot in the space of 24 hours. There you go. Right, thank you very much for tuning in with us this afternoon, or this morning, sorry. God, it feels like it's been a long day already.
Yeah, it does.
Tuning with us this morning. As we mentioned at the top, head over to Ickonic.com, sign up, $1.99. We've got the Legacy, which came out yesterday, a series looking at David's books through the years and the things he's written that are now being read on television news. I can't deal with this.
I can't get it back up.
And the Roundtable, which comes out at 5 o'clock tonight, and then Everything Answered that comes out at 5 o'clock on Sunday, as well as all the regular shows. Classified with this man, which comes out tonight, Garifite tonight on Wednesdays, Health Code on Tuesdays, WhatsApp on Saturdays, and Bring the Fire on Sundays. We're doing our best to give you as much value as possible. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week.